Recording live from my studio apartment in St. Petersburg, Florida. This is Taylor Turner with an update on my recent findings on the religion Buddhism. Buddhism was created by a man named Buddha, who was originally named Siddhartha. Siddhartha grew up in a kingdom where he lived in a world on his own, being educated by tutors. One day, he took it upon himself to go outside of the kingdom, and on that particular day, he came across an old feeble man, a weak and sick man, and a corpse. Realizing he'd been sheltered from all of this, he knew the world could use more compassion based on seeing the shape these men were in. Ultimately, coming to the conclusion that despite being tutored that he knew nothing of the world as it really was, only after seeing it did he gain this perspective. Upon gaining this new perspective, he set out to discover the reality of the world for himself. Through this exploration, he came to the conclusion that life in this world involves inevitable suffering. I must say that I am quite fascinated with the findings that have come along with this recent study. Suffering is a term used quite often within this religion. When Buddha speaks of birth, life, death, and rebirth, he associates the life portion with suffering because of our desires, which brings us to our first topic of discussion. The Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth is the truth of suffering, which is the acceptance of inevitability of hardships throughout life. The second noble truth is the arising of suffering, is the admittance that desires are the cause of suffering. The third noble truth is the truth of cessation of suffering, the realization that when you no longer desire things, your suffering ends. Finally, the fourth noble truth is the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. This is the Noble Eightfold Path to Nirvana. The Noble Eightfold Path are guidelines to the path of reaching enlightenment. In other words, the message that Buddha preaches is the centerpiece that emphasizes morality, meditation, and wisdom. The Eightfold Path consists of right understanding, right thought, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Buddha also implemented an ethical code to go along with the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, known as the Five Precepts. These codes state that you should abstain from killing, abstain from taking what is not given, and avoid sexual misconduct. Abstain from false speech and abstain from fermented drinking that causes heedlessness. As you've probably figured out by now, this entire religion's base comes from one man's philosophy. There are no gods in this religion, only the study and worship of Buddha and his teachings. Throughout this week of study on Buddhism, I came across the impact it has on Buddhism society and the structure today. Well, for starters, they are very kind and caring people. They acknowledge that everyone shares the same fate of dealing with hardships throughout life. This creates a sympathy factor which leads to compassionate acts for others. Materialistic goods do not fit into the agenda of Buddhists because they are considered unnecessary desires, which we've discussed before leads to unhappiness. By recognizing that these desires can lead to unhappiness, Buddhists tend to try and live in the moment as opposed to hoping or wishing for things in the future. Meditation and yoga are methods that Buddhists use to live in the present and be mindful of their surroundings. These practices also contribute to them breaking the cycle of suffering and reaching their final destination of enlightenment. Eliminating all desire and being in the moment without worrying of anything else is how Buddhists reach nirvana. I hope you were as entertained as I and intrigued by all of this as I was. This is Taylor Turner. Until next time.